Hello, hello. I'm going to talk a little bit about the private sector engagement in GEO. So if you're here and you want to hear about it, great. If you're not, please leave. Okay, so GEO has been working with the private sector for quite a number of years. And if you look at the work program, the GEO work program has about 70 different activities in it. And across the work program, there are actually almost 100 companies, 100 private sector organizations that are already engaged in the work program. So it's not that we're not doing anything, but what we've been trying to do is find a framework and find better opportunities for the collaboration, the two-way engagement, so that the private sector benefits, but also bearing in mind that GEO is a membership organisation. So GEO exists for the countries. GEO exists for the national government organisations to benefit and to learn about the value and usefulness of Earth observations for research policy, decision-making and action. So it has to be a two-way process, and it has to be something that thinks about what the countries get as the members of GEO. So we have the countries who are the number one, who are the members, and that's why GEO exists. Then we have the participating organisations, who are those that are there to support the activities to help the members. So participating organisations, there's 126 or 127, over 120. And they're there to support the work that we do in the community through the work programme and everything else to help the countries. We now have a new category called the Associates. And so we now are opening up the ability for private sector organisations to come in and be officially affiliated with GEO. So what I wanted to talk about just briefly before we start the next session is that you can apply to become a GEO Associate. So that's basically an email to the GEO Secretariat or directly to me, because I have to do the work anyway. And you'll get a form to complete, which is essentially an application form. And then the way it works is, because we're a membership organisation and because it's country-led, the country that you're from will make the decision on the application. So they'll basically check that you actually exist as an organisation and that you're not sort of like fraudulently channeling money through the Cayman Islands or something like that. Anyway, I don't know what the checks are, but there's a number of things that we'll be checking through there. One of the other key things is that you can contribute to the work programme. And like I said, there are companies already contributing in many different ways. So that's one thing. The other thing is using the information products that come out of the GEO work programme. So there's projects like GEO Veneer, which is working on energy. They've been working on photovoltaic cells, solar panels, that's what I should have said. They're working on how to use Earth observations to identify those areas, and they've produced some information products that the private sector can now do. There are organisations who have listened to what the community is doing and have created products like PCI on analysis-ready data. So there are ways to take the things that are being done in the community and build on top of them. The thing that most people probably think is this second last point about providing open data or software and services to the GEO community. Yes, that is what the countries want, but it's not everything. So it has to be a two-way process. It's not just about the private sector giving to the countries. It's also about the private sector getting something back, because they need to build their businesses as well. And then finally, quite an obvious one, but participate in these kind of events and sponsor events. And I know a number of you have, and thank you very much to those who sponsored this event, because that helps do a number of things. It's not just coffee, it also pays for people to come from overseas who otherwise wouldn't be able to come. So the new GEO Associate membership is essentially, these are the this is the framework around it. So you have to be somehow working in Earth observations. That's kind of pretty obvious. You have to be registered somewhere. So we hope that that's in the territory of a GEO member country, so one of the 105 countries. If you're not, then we need to have a separate discussion because we'll probably try and bring that country in as a member anyway. Be able to demonstrate 2 or more years of substantive involvement with GEO. This was kind of put in there to actually, I guess, push organisations to engage in the work programme and to engage in the activities of GEO, so that people don't just come in and say, hey, we're a GEO affiliate, and throw about a badge when actually they're not really contributing. So, and I think that, you know, there are a lot of organisations who we know the contributions they've made, so there are ways of kind of identifying that contribution as well. And then finally, identifying the self-funded and sustained contribution to GEO, and I think that's just about GEO's not going to fund you to come in. You know, it's something that you do as an organisation. It might be part of your corporate social responsibility, your philanthropic contribution, or it might just be good business development opportunities for you because you get to network with the community. So one of the things that GEO is involved in, you can see up here, is the GEO Data Challenge through FOSS4G, the free and open source community. So there's a data challenge, an GEO Data Challenge on at the moment, and there's the URL for that. And there are a number of private sector companies already involved. In fact, there's a number of people here who are mentors or who are on the panel deciding who the winners are. So I just wanted to highlight that. There's money available, which is always good. There's the invitation to go to the camp, the CIESIN camp, and also this ability to get help to turn the ideas into a sustainable business model. So I just want to highlight that because this is something that we're really keen to support, not just as an open source activity, but also as a community activity and something that also engages the private sector. And then you have the dates here. So the URL gives you all this information, but you can just see here that it's you know, it's about to close, but then all the other stages will take off. And then in August, at the end of August, when the event takes place, that's when they'll have the winners and the ceremony. The other thing I want to highlight is the Ministerial Summit. So GEO works in decades, and through the decades, there are a number of meetings that involve ministers. So it ends up working out something like every 3 to 4 years, we have these ministerial summits as part of the decadal activities. So this year is one of the years where we have the ministerial summit. So what that means is we will bring ministers from around the world to Australia to talk about the big topics that we're addressing. So the global challenges, food security, water resources management, energy, all of these things that are big considerations for countries worldwide. Now, it's an entire week like the normal GEO plenary, except this year, as well as having the ministerial summit, we'll also have an industry track. So this industry track will be over 2 days, and this is kind of a call for all of you to contribute to this, because there will be many different ways of contributing to this industry track. Now, what happens is a number of the countries will come with the private sector from their country. So, for example, the European Commission comes with companies. We have China will bring a dozen countries. The USA will bring companies with them. So you can come in yourself. You can support as an organisation, or you can come as part of the national delegation. There are different ways of getting involved. But these are the things that will be happening and the ways that you'll be able to contribute. So there's the exhibition that will be taking place. There'll be a focus event on the Asia-Oceania region. So there'll be AO at GEO. There'll be an industry and GEO forum. So there'll be a lot of talk about, you know, what are the issues that the industry is tackling. And this is not just the stuff we've been talking about here, but, you know, it might be something around licensing. It might be the private sector view on open data, because not everyone wants to give their data away for free or can give their data away for free. It might be stuff on Space 2.0. and what does that mean for the private sector and engagement and Earth observations globally. So there are a number of ways of contributing, participating, and I think what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to, and bear in mind, because we're a member organisation, we need to get consensus from the countries on what we do. So the countries all have different requirements, different perspectives and different motivations with the private sector. So we're trying to align these activities across GEO, but provide this two-way engagement so that there's something for the private sector as well as for the GEO member countries. And one of the key things is looking at the kind of from the upstream to the downstream of the Earth observations kind of supply chain or value chain. And so GEO historically has done quite a lot in the upstream side, and we know a lot of the big organizations and the big vendors. And what we haven't done so much of is more of the downstream and working with a lot of the smaller organizations and the small and medium and micro-sized enterprises, the SMMEs. So one of the things that we're working on now is a short paper to look at how to engage the SMMEs better in GEO. So ERSC and South Africa and a couple of other countries, we're working together to put the first draft of that paper, and then we will put that out for review. So contact me if you want more information on any of this, but you can also speak to any of my colleagues. I mean, this is something we changed. The way GEO is governed is through the rules of procedure, and the rules of procedure were changed in Washington DC at the plenary in October 2017, so that there was agreement by everyone in GEO that commercial sector engagement was an important topic and it would be more flexible and more engaging. So without me speaking much more, because I'm now running into time, could I invite all the panelists up now for this next session, and we'll get started on that. So Manuel, Betty, Tesfaye, Stephen, and Jens, if you can all come up, that would be great. Thank you. And Craig, perfect timing for, yes, please. Now, this session is perfectly named because I've just talked about, trying to engage more SMMEs. So this session is about what innovations are we seeing from the commercial sector that support GEO's mission. So our first speaker is Emmanuel Pajot, who's from ERSC, the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies, and he's a senior project manager there, and he's going to talk about EOMOL. So over to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you. So thank you to dedicate a session to innovation from SSMEs. Why? Because the Earth observation, and more globally the geoinformation industry, is changing, and is changing really fast. At all levels, industry has to manage a new landscape. In the global competition, a competition in a company which doesn't change its process, its approach, will go bankrupt. In other words, employees will lose jobs. So by default, I would say that innovation is part of the DNA of the entrepreneur. Innovation is a key component in order to develop a sustainable activity, to develop its business, and to reach its goal. So yes, the change is something which is really normal. Its velocity may be a threat or an opportunity. ERSC is a fair trade association founded 30 years ago. ERSC is a European Association of Remote Sensing Companies. We want to have company to develop in the EO downstream sector. Our aim is really to foster the industry and to represent the industry, to create a sustainable network between the industry, decision makers, and the users. We represent 120 members in 22 countries in Europe. What does downstream industry means? Well, first, in our definition, the or company providing services or supplying equipment in the field of remote sensing, could be a satellite or drones, for example, is part of this value chain. So it will start with a ground station operation, satellite operator, data reseller, and then the software and hardware development, value-adding companies, consultancy, and GI services. This is very linear, and the ecosystem in which we live actually and work actually is much more complex. What we have actually is a traditional 3 tiers model with the resources, the exploitation, and what we call the knowledge. We discussed a lot today about, on the previous day, about the access to data, to infrastructure with the cloud. So in this layer, we could find the DS, Copernicus, EOSC Hub, for example. In this exploitation tier, we understand the Earth observation service providers. The people will use the data, will use the infrastructure, will use non-Earth observation services, will use additional product in order to develop services fitting the needs. And for this, they need to have an enabler in order to support the link, to increase the link with potential customers. It could be commercial, it could be government, or it could be researchers. But actually, what we can see is that they have to interact, they have to develop new relations. It's much more complex than before. It's a real matrix. So it has to ensure the reliability of information you will collect from the different parts. It has to access to knowledge. Knowledge, what are the requirements? What are the needs of the different users? It has to access to technology. What is suitable for this purpose? It has to access to market knowledge. For example, what is the size of the market? What are the trends? And it has to have access to capital in order to cross, for example, the death valley during the innovation process. So to illustrate this, the innovation of SMMEs, I decided to focus on 4 pillars. Okay. The first one is the value chain. The second one, the supply, then the demand and the skills. Sorry, I'm modifying my slide, but I didn't update it. So the value chain is changing. From years already, we know that big data from big digital players arrive, so they are not really new. But we can see that they provide more and more services. For example, a few months ago, Amazon provided the ground station as a service. So this is good. I'm not here to say if it's good or not, but I can tell you that these kind of services may exist in a different way, provided by SMEs, such as space application, for example. About the acquisition, SMEs help to develop new capabilities. I'll start with one very small company. It's just a startup. 2 weeks ago, they raised 11 million in order to launch a constellation of small sat from Belgium, small city in Belgium. But they will not just only acquire data. They will deliver services. And we can see that in this area, the value chain is changing. Another example, EarthEye. Of course, they will provide full color video, but what they want to is to develop services on top of this. GIM, third example, is a bit different and really interesting. It highlights the new relation a service provider and a customer have. And in this example, a farmer is able to acquire with a drone images, but he has some difficulties to process it. So GIM use the data acquired by the farmer in order to process and to create the additional value-added layers for the benefit of the user. So it's a new approach. We all speak about technology, which is really a push, I think. We would like to find a way to invert the market and to have a more pull market. And this is what new companies, such as this startup in Portugal, Cibel, want to do. They are lawyers. And they want to use the law, and they want to identify what kind of Earth observation services can be useful for in order to support environmental legal cases. In a similar way, what we are going to do we'll start next month, is a project called Parsec. Parsec will support SMEs in order to improve their understanding of the market, in order to reach the commercialization stage as soon as possible. It will be for 3 markets: environmental, energy, and agriculture. And then, we used to say that Earth observation is a bespoke market, which is true, maybe which was true. End of 2016, Earth published a survey, interesting one, and what has been identified is that at this time, online services represented only 5% of the market. What is planned, what was foreseen at this time, is that in 2025, the online market may be the same size as a traditional market in 2016. This may change a lot of things. And we really want to help companies to lead this new market. We just launched this EUMOL web platform a few months ago, end of December last year. And what is really amazing is we can see that on this map, the number of countries we have been able to reach already. It's just the beta type for the moment, but already we can see that a lot of people are looking at what kind of services are available online. And SMEs have really well understood the benefit of this approach. And among the early adopters, we have a lot of SMEs. What do they provide? Cheetah Map, Geo Systems, ELAS, Sportit, Zebris, DHI, Grass, Planetech, TerraSigna, provide a lot of different services in different market or thematic, urban areas, land cover classification, fire detection, bathymetry, interferometry. And in the context of TerraSigna, they provide free Earth science data access and processing services for the Black Sea. Another point I want to raise is the pre-commercial procurement. You may have heard about this Marine EO PCP. It's really interesting. 71% of the contract have been won by SMEs instead of a classic 30% part. This represents the ability of SMEs to adapt their offer in order to fit new rules. Another example has been presented this morning by GEO. It's the OCRI project. Actually, there is only few links in terms of market share between the researcher community and the private sector. Only few. It's really difficult for researchers to access to potential services they would like to add in their study. Thanks to OCRI, we can see a real opportunity here to define a smoother process in order to provide access of added value services to this new community, important community. Last slide is about skills. It has been mentioned already during the workshop. Earth observation requires a lot of skills. Classic one, Earth observation, GI, IT. A lot of approach, and I think that SMEs are really aware about all the publication and the work which is done by the researcher to understand what can be done with deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on. But on the other side, they really try to identify where they can find in the non-Earth observation community potential new approach, valuable approach. And this is why, for example, a GAF has created a link with the video game industry in order to improve the rendering of their services, 3D rendering. So this is really relevant, I think, to show all the different diversity of approach from the industry. And last, I would say, you will make my day if you may pick one of these companies you don't know. These are the list of the ERSC members, and for sure, you don't know several of them. So please have a look at one, discover what are the service offers they deliver in order to understand more what they can offer to you. I really think that geo and commercial communities are working on very similar thematics, are facing similar challenge, and they may have common needs or requirements. It's a fact because a lot of companies are in this room. So in this context, I think GEO is a real enabler in order to develop links between this company and to help us to leverage different barriers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great. That was really, really useful, really insightful. Okay, here we go. Bear with me here. We now have Betty Charalampopoulos.
Yes.
Okay. Who's the CEO of Geo Systems, Hellas. And for those who don't know, Hellas is Greece.
Yes.
Betty, over to you.
Thank you for giving me the floor. I'm Betty Charalampopoulos. I'm the CEO of Geo Systems Hellas, which is based in Athens. And the company is member of FEARSC. And thank you, Emmanuel, for presenting the initiative of EOMOL, because my presentation will focus on that. The company started in 2009 in Greece as last member of Geo Systems in Europe. And we have 3 divisions. One division is commercial division doing business under Hexagon Geospatial and Hexagon Airborne technologies. The second division is offering services based on these technologies, and the third division is doing pure R&D. We cover the market of Greece and Cyprus, and our business is focusing in merging the real world with the digital world in order to deliver to our customers flexible but accurate solutions. So, as I told, the company is member of FEARSC, and because of the people dealing in the company with Earth observation business more than 20 years, we are involved also in the Hellenic Association of Space Industries and in the SI cluster, which is the space cluster in Greece. We fuse satellite information with other sensors information. We use information from airborne LiDAR, UAVs, terrestrial sensors, and so on. And the idea is to provide solutions, software solution, custom-based on desktop and web application. This today presentation is about the 5D multi-purpose land information system, which is a tool that is promoted via EOMOL under the EOMOL taxonomy. And from the beginning, the company has been involved via ERSC in the working groups of EOMOL, and in this first stage, we offered this solution via the EOMOL platform. The idea of the tool is to replace traditional two-dimensional land information system for the purpose of urban planning and regeneration, land administration, real estate management, and civil development to a 3D software solution in order to facilitate the built environment, the urban environment. This started as a land management tool in order to facilitate small neighborhoods of Athens versus climate change in order to give green spaces and natural-based solution, and also to real estate development of a neighborhood for giving affordable housing to to new families and to young people. Because we made communities of practice, another community has asked us to help on the redevelopment of a cultural heritage city center in order to facilitate the touristic market, which is a very crucial market for Greece and Cyprus. The idea is that the tool is using 3D existing software packages in order to manage various types of information, and also merge on top of that financial, architectural, topographical, cadastral, valuation, engineering, ownership, etc. Data that we get from governmental, regional, and local databases, and use the 3D spatial dimension on time and on scale. The focus is the presentation of and analysis of real estate properties and map-based features in the 3 dimensions through time, planning phase, development phase, registration phase, modification phase, and so on, in various scales and level of detail in order to facilitate the urban redevelopment. Of course, the engineers of the company has to face mass processing of data and parallelization, also data analytics and machine learning in order to deliver the tools. In this first phase in the EOMOL, the 5D MUPLIS solution takes account spatio-temporal data and scale dimension, 3D time scale, no gaps, no overlaps. It gives a creation of interoperable alignment interface that enables data collection from heterogeneous resources to be integrated in a common framework. It gives the possibility of computing architecture with the purpose to visualize, publish, and deliver the 5D model to different expertise in order to be used for the urban regeneration and development. And further give tools for research, multi-sectoral aspects in the area of computer vision, photogrammetry, civil engineering, and crowdsourcing, knowledge engineering, 3D data processing and archiving, 5D visualization, publishing and delivery technologies. The task is to introduce the time and the scale dimensions to the 3D land information systems to enhance data management in various levels of detail with no gaps, no overlaps in time and space. This is the typical architecture of the modeling scheme in order to go to the 4th dimension. The first study area, as I explained, it was an urban area of 9 urban blocks in Athens. We used existing data derived from satellite and airborne in order to make this area in 3D. Also, we did texture by using clever terrestrial photogrammetrical methods with mobile phone photos, and also can be used with can be done with crowdsourced data. In order to facilitate an architect that took the information and made the same neighborhood in the future by following the rules of the green areas and the natural-based solution in a very, let's say, deep urban area of Athens, and also get advantage of existing buildings from the 60s and the 70s by modifying them under a new energy performance of these buildings. And that's how the information gives a building information modeling and building management system of these urban building blocks. That project took place and facilitated new couples, so it gave some strength to the local community in the specific area of Athens. And this is the example of the end user, the customer, that asks us to modify the application for touristic purposes. This is the example of Corfu, which is a cultural heritage area under UNESCO. You cannot do much because of the UNESCO initiative, but we changed the land use of some building blocks under an investor and under long-term rental. The investor didn't buy all the buildings of these building blocks in order to provide boutique hotels and small restaurants. And of course, like that, the area took different value, different real estate value, and gave to the local community new jobs. Again, same kind of methodology was used, but under different conditions. And this is the last slide that I will show, which was given from a friend some time ago, Chrysippotsiou, who is the ex-FIG president. And it's the road to the digital transformation, challenges and opportunities, and a lot of unanswered questions. The data is there, the skills are there. It's how the society can achieve benefits from all of that information. And what we got as a conclusion from the 5D project is that we used open or low-cost data. We extended the use of affordable smart devices by crowdsourcing, and of course, in the future, that would be more use on that because of the 5G. And we moved from the Internet of Me to the Internet of Things, value blockchains and distributed ledger technology, of course, by using machine learning and so on. So that was one of the UN Sustainable Development Agenda tasks against poverty, because like that we gave to young couples the possibility of affordable housing, and also the task of sustainable cities and communities in parallel to the, let's say, initiative of the climate change. I would like again to thank you. If there are questions, if they're technical, can be sent by mail, because I'm not a purely technical person. If I can answer the questions, I'm happy to.
Thank you very much. Ευχαριστώ.
Παρακαλώ.
International management of Greek. Okay, so our next speaker is, now I'm getting all these names, Tesfaye Korme. And Tesfaye's, he runs GeoSAS Consulting, but he's had quite a lot of experience in this area in the past. He worked on the MESA project, and for 9 years, he was Director of Engineering. You were at RCMRD. So the people who are now running AfriGeos, so you know this space very well. So over to you, Tesfaye.
Thank you, Steve. Let me take this opportunity also to thank GEOS for giving me the opportunity as well. So I'm going to present the EO status in Africa, especially the view from Ethiopia. In doing so, what I would like to do is let me just go back and see how we started using EO data in Ethiopia. So the first operational product was produced around the beginning of 25 years ago. It was from Landsat. So the Ministry of Agriculture produced the initial land use land cover map that was validated and disseminated. But most of the national institutions did not accept this product. There were a lot of debate about it. Then later on, still the universities and researchers pushed the products, similar products, and the Ethiopian mapping agency started to use spot data for updating topographic maps, all the topographic maps. It was also successful. Again, still the government did not take it as really acceptable product, but it took some time to convince as well. Then the Ethiopian Central Statistical Authority also, they tried to use the spot image for area enumeration area mapping. That worked in the rural area, but in the urban area, they said, okay, we need something better than spot. So aerial photo has been used. Finally, the most appreciated product came from Ministry of Mines when they produced reliable geological maps in collaboration with private companies. So the geological maps that were really processed and produced from multispectral Landsat image, well disseminated, and up to today they are widely used. And also medium resolution satellite data and low resolution weather satellite data were also gradually picked up to be used by weather services. So currently they are really fully being used by Ethiopian Meteorological Service for long-term and short-term forecasts as well. So despite the challenges, the EO data and the product derived are now being accepted and being operational. That's highly appreciated. And the universities played very important role because around the mid-2000, 2005, a lot of curriculum have been introduced in remote sensing, in GIS, cartography, geodesy, and so on at master's level. And this has really improved the consumer community. It also improved the confidence of the users because papers have been published, workshops have been delivered, and products were freely disseminated to the users. So really, that was an achievement. Then, again, at the status of the use, urban mapping is a bigger issue in Ethiopia because of the rapidly growing population. And also the economy is also, the last 15 years, it has been really growing at higher rate. So due to that, there are urban growth, slums are really growing. So the traditional way is not really possible. So the government instructed universities and research institutions to partner with private companies to produce very efficient and rapid urban maps for planning and service provision purposes. So the first maps were produced and orthophoto were produced from satellite image, not from aerial photographs. So again, except some measurements on XY location accuracy, again, this result was well accepted by the users and so on. And currently, thanks to the international partners, data suppliers, and also universities, we have reached really an advanced level to the extent that we compute the land surface temperature using complex algorithms from thermal bands of Landsat and MODIS archives. So we have been showing how in urban areas the temperature has been increasing. The land surface temperature has been increasing. In this case, for example, if we see the Awasa city, it is a city in the southern Ethiopia. In the last few years, the temperature has increased by 8 degrees, much more than what has been predicted by climate change. And this is an alarming, so we have to bring this to the government and also the city councils so that they pay attention, because there is industrial park that's being developed, cities are growing very fast, land cover has been changing. So this is an alarming, and we managed to influence the decision making, and the government has appreciated it. So the products are really very good to the extent that they show the parcels, the playgrounds and the industrial zones that are emitting large amount of heat, radiating heat. So that was used. And again, we did the same for another city that's rapidly growing in central Ethiopia called Bahar Dar. Bahar Dar is at the starting of the Blue Nile, source of Blue Nile. So again, there is a rapid increasing of land surface temperature despite the presence of big water body there. Again, this has been used by government authorities very well, and in fact, they are demanding for more research on that. The other area now, due to the droughts and the shortage of water in Ethiopia, the government is embarking on what we call climate resilient WASH program, which means deeper groundwater search for the country, because the shallow water wells are dependent on the climate change. So we were instructed by the Ministry of Water to set up a model by which we can indicate the potentials of the country where we can find deep groundwater. So we managed to produce by combining a number of layers that are derived from satellite data, SRTM and optical data. We managed to produce the potential groundwater areas in arid part of Ethiopia. So again, this product is given really a big thumb. So the government says, okay, let's validate it and then roll it out for the whole country because it is cost effective. Time-wise, it's taking shorter time, and also it involves really medium resolution data. It's not data intensive. So GeoSAS is now supporting the government in producing this similar product for a number of arid areas in Ethiopia. So as a conclusion, what I can say is the universities have done a good job in really marketing EO and its product and in getting credibility of the product. Now also the private companies are taking over, and then they are making value or converting the research product into the application. So that's very interesting. So the government is now working with the private company a lot. In addition, Ethiopia is going to launch its own satellites September next year. It's a high-resolution satellite, around 5-meter resolution, multispectral. And that will add also certain value to the data amount we have in the country. So as a conclusion, again, GEOS is proposing really very interesting approach where we use this data cube and also the Digital Earth Africa. I like that idea because we are now really having trouble with downloading data, then getting software from another source, then computing, then there are products, intermediate and final products. All this takes time and the space of computer. So with this new approach, really, we will make a big step ahead. So we are really part of it. Thank you very much.
I'm a Signalo.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm learning thank you in many different languages. So I'd just like you all to remember that we have the Slido for this. I'm finding this really fascinating, actually, and incredibly useful. So I hope there's lots of good questions going to come through here. Our next speaker is Stephen Adusa. Stephen's the Director of Engineering at Farmerline. And if you haven't already looked at their app, don't look at it now. Listen to Stephen, but at some point look at their app. It's really cool. It's really nice, really simple. Okay, Stephen, over to you.
All right, thanks, Steve. Well, I think my presentation will present a different perspective from what we've heard since last 2 days. I'm Stephen, as has already mentioned. I'm the Director of Engineering at Farmerline. So at Farmerline, our core mandate is not around Earth observation and handling Earth observation data. Our core mandate is to make sure that smallholder farmers, we create lasting profits for them. So we have digital tools circling around customer identification and registration, like farm mapping, certification, traceability, digital finance, just to include the farmers financially. So those are some of the things that we've been looking at. But quite recently, I think within the past year or so, where we've been entertaining the idea of also exploring how we can use Earth observation data to complement the advisory services that we are giving to our farmers. And we find it quite interesting because then we've realized that in our efforts, or in the farmers' efforts to produce a lot more food for the country or for the world, they are tempted to go beyond what they are not supposed to do. So issues like deforestation, land degradation, issues encroachment, we found in our data sets. So I think that's the reason why we decided to also enter the sphere of Earth observation, how we could use satellite data imagery to do those analysis and to help advise our farmers. So this is how my presentation will be structured. I will give a brief overview of Ghana. I'm sure you've heard about Ghana, the Gold Coast, and then I would just move on to speak about Farmerline's approach to Earth observation. Then I would speak briefly about the solutions that we're trying to come up with. And then we'll use an example from a farm analysis that we did during our R&D last year. And then some few partners, and then we'll conclude. So I just grabbed this from the FAO website, and that's the basic statistics for Ghana, the land size and agriculture, and then the forest area. But particularly, if you look at the agriculture area and then the forest area, it tells you that Ghana is really, really much into agricultural work. And now you see, so agriculture, including forestry, is the backbone of the Ghanaian economy. Both sectors provide 43% of the Ghana of our GDP and 50% of export earnings and 70% of our total employment. So Ghana is huge on agricultural works. Now the forestry department alone accounts for 6% of the GDP, 11% of export earnings, and employs a labor force of 100,000 people. So there is a lot of activity going on in that sector in Ghana. Ghana has one of the strongest economies, without a doubt, in the sub-Saharan Africa due to its area of natural resources. However, the exploitation of these resources coupled with overall lack of environmental awareness has devastated the country's forest. Now, the reason why I put this point there is because, we all know Ghana, we have bauxite, we have gold, cocoa, timber. Talk about all the natural resources available to us. So in our attempt to harness all these things, we run the risk of also causing damage to the earth. So it's very important for us to start monitoring and then try to bring some sort of solutions to the way that we are treating the environment. Now, Ghana has one of the highest deforestation rates in Africa. So sad to say that, but then. And in the world, at 2% per annum. Between 1990 and 2000, Ghana lost an average of 135,000 hectares of forest per year, and that's also from the FAO website. Now in Ghana, deforestation is mostly contributed to by the slash and burn agricultural systems that we do. So most farmers do subsistence farming, and a few does the cash crops. And they mostly clear the bushes and just to make land available for them to farm on. And things like timber, cutting out of timber, illegal mining is one of the big issues also in Ghana. Quite recently, the government initiated a project that was called the Vanguard project, that military men had to go within the bushes to stop people from illegally mining on land that they are not supposed to mine on. Now, our own approach to how we want to solve this problem in the past 5 years is to work with all partners in the value chain. So talk about the farm input companies, sustainable food brands, governments, financial institutions. We work with all these people. We connect the farmers directly to them. So whatever services that they have to give to farmers, we act as the intermediary with our digital tools to provide the farmers with all the information. So, for example, the farm input companies, they produce input companies like Edema, who produces acetastar, which is a pesticide that the farmers use mostly for the cocoa sector in Ghana. They need to know where these farmers are. And in our network, we have over 200,000 farmers in our network. And we can pinpoint at the exact location where each farmer is, because we have like smartphone-empowered agents scattered across the length and breadth of Ghana, collecting this data for us day in, day out. So they map the farmers' farms, they collect their home location, their path from their farm to the house, and all this data is sitting in our database. So we're able to use this to connect input companies to the farmers who need this kind of services. And particularly also because of our expertise in knowing how the crop calendar works, we are able to connect them directly at the times that they need it. And that's the key to that. So sustainable food brands like the Hershey's in the chocolate industry, who normally purchase huge tons of cocoa beans from Ghana. Need I say that Ghana is the second largest producer of cocoa in the world. So most of these food brands tend to Ghana when they need quality cocoa beans to produce their chocolates. And for sustainable companies like that, they are interested in issues like child labor, deforestation, what is going on, where are these cocoa beans being produced, and how are they being produced? Are they produced in the right conditions? So for them, we provide them with traceability tools, certification tools, profiling, mapping, and all those digital tools that I've spoken about. Now, this is just an extra explanation to how we work with those 4 different partners to serve our farmers' needs. So I'll just skip that one and talk about the solution. So in Farmerline, we have 2 broad solutions: the Merge Data, which has the digital tools that works directly with B2B clients. And we have the 399 service, which is our impact course that works directly with the farmers. So with the Merge Data, it has about 6 modules: the customer identification, the farm mapping, certification, traceability. We have digital finance, and we also have customer education. When it comes to the 399 service, that is where we have innovations like using the USSD technologies, the IVR technologies, to translate weather information, market price information, agronomy tips to the farmers' local languages, and they can receive this information directly on their feature phones. So we have an infrastructure that is built to deliver information to the farmers in a timely manner so that it can help them farm well. So how we want to connect what we already have, the infrastructure that we already have built, with the Earth observation is when we started doing research into developing a tool that is called the Farm Analysis Tool. Now, the main goals for the Farm Analysis Tool is to verify that the farmland is not encroaching on reserved or restricted areas. Now, in Ghana, we have permanent forest reserves in Ghana that nobody is supposed to encroach on, or is supposed to farm or do any sort of timber work on. And then these polygons are available in with the government. So we believe that in incorporating the Earth observation data, we'll be able to detect if farmers, because we have the polygons of the farms, we'll be able to detect if farmers are coming closer to reserved areas. And then because we have the infrastructure and the details of the farmer already, we can quickly send them notifications via SMS or phone calls to alert them that you are going beyond where you're not supposed to be farming. So that is one thing I want to do. We also want to assist the farmer in relevant educational tips by giving them insights on the farm from satellite NDVI imagery analysis, as I spoke about earlier on. To get information like the stress levels of vegetation cover, stress levels of the farm, determining crop soil analysis, whether there is too much, you need more phosphorus or nitrogen or whatever. We'll be able to give them those informations in a timely manner that would help them apply those fertilizer and then helps them increase the yield on the same amount of farmland that they are working on without extending or expanding the land size. Also to spot sudden changes in farm vegetation in the case of bushfire, which normally happens during the dry seasons in Ghana. Track vegetation changes, as I've said, and also to certify that farms have the crops and properties they claim to have, such as proximity to water bodies. And this is very important. When we're doing our research, we realized that certain farms are closer to water bodies that are situated in communities, and those water bodies are the real source of drinking water for those communities. So what happens is that if they apply certain fertilizers, certain chemicals on their farms, and for some reason it rains and washes those chemicals away and goes directly to the stream, it causes problem for the community. So knowing this and knowing how close your farm to it and how it can affect the livelihood of the people living there is also an important information that we would like to derive and send to our customers or our clients. Now, this is just screenshots of what we did. So on your left, what you're seeing on the left is the farm overview and expansion rate. So we connected with 2 external partners. Since we are not like experts in Earth observation data, we partnered with 2 organizations. One for the image acquisition, gives us we send them the polygons and they give us the satellite imagery, and then we send it over to another organization who does the analysis for us and provide us with this NDVI image. And it helps us to determine the expansion of the farm since its inception. And on your right, it also tells us the proximity to the reserved forest area. So you know in kilometers how close your farmlands are to the water bodies. And this one also, this is the water body. The other one is the forest reserve. And this is proximity to the water bodies. And the last one also gives us basic crop health analysis, telling you the stress levels of your land and whether you need to apply more fertilizer or input also. So these are information. This is how we want to go about it. But as I said earlier on, our main mandate is not to have do stuff in Earth observation. So we are inviting partners, people who are already in the space doing it. We already have experts. And I've already spoken to a lot of folks around. Thomas, we spoke earlier on, Trent, we've already connected. And then with the projects that you mentioned that will be done in Africa, the Digital Earth Africa, I think will be very useful. We will connect and I'll make sure that any way that we can connect, because we have the local expertise. We've worked with farmers for years and we know their needs and how they can benefit from such information. So I'll be glad to connect and contribute in any way that I can. So these are the two partners that we worked with, Skywatch and then Adrenalytics. They are now called Deltoids. Now, why this matters? One, improved farmer income and productivity. Why we're doing this is we want to increase the farmers' productivity and also help them increase their income through timely intervention for global issues like deforestation, child labor, as I mentioned. And last one is more food for the world. Thank you.
I'm taking a big risk here because I know there's 250 languages and dialects in Ghana. Meda Wasi? Right, so our final speaker coming up today is Jens Heistermann. I hope I said that right, it's probably Heistermann or something, who is a geospatial specialist at GEO Image, otherwise known as GTI. And I know Mark from GTI has been supporting a lot of AfriGeos events I've been to. So GTI is already in the GEO network, so to speak. So over to you, Jens.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to chat, and thank you for the invitation. And I think I'd like to maybe give a different perspective about small commercial entity within South Africa and how in the past 5 to 6 years we've changed our strategy. And as Emmanuel actually mentioned in the beginning, we're looking at value further down the value chain, downstream of the value chain, and how we're creating business intelligence instead of further data products. So we are just embracing the incredible growth and opportunity this industry provides. And I think we are all in this room well versed as to what the drivers are of this industry, and then also recognize the enablers that allow us to actually create new products and innovate. And so many of them in this room. And it's actually from a commercial perspective, it's quite overwhelming, the different enablers that are out there that you can use to actually create a product or value in the industry or multiple industries. And it's kind of being a chef and being able to go into a pantry and just have the best selection of ingredients to create your solution, which is great. And I always think that and believe that a question yesterday which Gregor from Synergize answered is if we should simplify the APIs to something more in one channel. But I just believe that if there's more players in the same space, it just creates this competitive community and environment for more innovation and then therefore for more opportunity. So I'm not quite sure in this room, I haven't heard it mentioned, but do any of you use Ducat Labs? Please show of hands. Okay, so that's another one, another great organization that's providing this incredible enterprise-grade processing opportunity and connecting the imagery and cloud computing capabilities, and just another incredible service that currently we are using. And just by the way, we've gone through quite a few of these services, and yeah, it's actually just difficult to make a choice and stick and go for it. So GeoTerra Image is located in Pretoria, South Africa. We've been in business for 20 years. Create very industry-specific solutions and done a lot of work in Africa. So basically, just talking about the evolution of our client strategy in the market, you know, and this has been touched on quite a bit. You know, what products were possible in the past, you know, creating maps and delivering data products. You know, I've been in the company for about 6 years, and, you know, gone through quite a journey from in the beginning, using the bulk downloader on USGS side to download products and then deliver products from and delivering on products and project specifics. And the clients to those data products would have to have some sort of GIS and remote sensing understanding and capability in-house. And the strategy to generate revenue within the company was projects. So how has this evolved? So now with all these opportunities and advancements in the technology, we can now integrate data, and instead of now just stopping at the data after having done so much work in the pre-processing environment, we can now focus downstream, create the value there, and actually create business intelligence and delivering holistic end-to-end solutions. Just an example, Airbnb uses over 200 different services to make up their one service. So that is the way of the future. So it's an integration of all these services and the interoperability of these to make these products and solutions. And I think Zedna from yesterday, he actually they're focusing on this, and I think it's brilliant because there's enough space for all the players, but there's also an opportunity to make all of these solutions interoperable. So who are our clients now? So we are on the process of moving away from those that need a detailed knowledge base of GIS and remote sensing, and realize that we actually now just need clients that acknowledge the value of spatially based intelligence. And now we focus less on projects and more on annuity products, and that can be scaled through technology. So, yeah, it's basically we use Earth observation, and you know, we focus on the algorithms and creating intelligence, and instead of delivering data products, we now deliver information to the clients and answer their questions. So it's more focused on actually answering the or almost preempting the questions being answered by industry clients, and creating the products for that. So I'm just going to run through some products that we currently offer in the market, and I think this is quite a well explored area, you know, of water monitoring. But as a commercial entity, you have to now take it further. So I heard Geoscience Australia having a great product on water as well, but now we have to take it a step further. So The aim then is to actually create volumetric estimates of water area, and we're doing this through bathymetry modeling using digital elevation models, which is quite fun. We've got our own website that is a service for the data we provide, and our models also work in Southern African countries and can be pretty much deployed in various places. So we have another product called GeoFarmer, which is looking at in-field analysis at scale. So in South Africa, we have about 14 million hectares of arable land, and lucky to have all these delineated as field boundaries. So making use of this as an asset and delivering information within these is sort of the obvious nexus of having Earth observation data so readily available, and ancillary data, and then just providing a service. So we can now focus on how to deliver this information to the client instead of, and also, use our experience and knowledge in the Earth observation industry to see what intelligence the agricultural community requires, and then deliver this in a format that existing delivery mechanisms can then ingest. So this is a crop-specific service, sugarcane harvest analysis. So we've actually we run a service, and on a monthly basis are able to then determine as to how much sugarcane has been harvested for a particular farmer. So this is making use of Sentinel-2 data. And this, so again, a great service that can be built off existing technologies. So this is quite a new product, not the 15 million points we have for each structure in South Africa, and based on land use for each of those structures, but actually detecting new developments. So trying to focus on products that where the value is found, and finding out where new structures are being built. So we're trying to identify potential areas of growth. And this is actually a photo above from the area I live in Pretoria. And if you focus on those 3 circles and 2 time slots in between there, you'll actually see the change. And we've now developed algorithms and processes to identify that change, but not only identify that change, categorize it as well. So we realize that there's market value in just identifying the change, then the trend, but then also using additional ancillary data to provide a real value of classifying that change and what it is. This is actually quite exciting, and this is the first time we have actually shown it outside our office. Is we have completed a national land cover. This is through a tender with Department of Environmental Affairs in South Africa, and we've been able to classify South Africa using automated approaches for the land cover classes, and then combined with ancillary data to actually provide detailed land use classes. So I think we can be very fortunate to have such a wealth of geographic information and masks for South Africa, and this has really assisted us in punching out a 2018 land cover classification quite quickly over the country. And it's been designed in a way to be repeatable year after year. So this is quite an achievement as a company as a whole, and we're actually working with the CSIR Research Institute in South Africa to make this something that the government can use, and all they have to do is maintain their spatial data, the ancillary data. So these are just a few pictures, Cape Town. So there you can just see the detail that we have 72 classes, so the detail and included in this land cover, and it's great. I mean, it's only it's by the end of the first quarter of 2019, we had a land cover for 2018, which is great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, dankie.
Plezier.
Okay, can you switch your mic off?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start this time round with the Slido questions. So this is to anyone and all of you at the same time. What's the one thing, remember, one thing that you would ask the GEO community, these people, and thousands of others, to do to support your work and social impact? And I will, shall I start with you, Betty?
One word.
One thing.
One thing.
Not one word.
Okay.
I mean,
one
the
thing.
word could be money, but one thing, not one word.
Okay. One thing is to help us and to have visibility on what we are doing as SME based in Europe.
So when you say visibility, you want people to understand more about the impact that you're delivering, the products you're working on, the technology. Which area do you want more visibility?
Technology, products, and somehow the strength of delivering a small, flexible solutions that could have a social impact.
That's quite clear. Then I will go to Stephen.
Well, I would say we would need access to experts when it comes to GEO data acquisition and processing.
Now, when you say experts, what specifically? Can you go just a little bit deeper?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier on, our core mandate is not really in Earth observation, but we are trying to bring out a product or build a tool that uses satellite imagery to present advisory information to our clients. So we need people who already have expertise in working with Earth observation data, who can advise, serve as sort of an advisors to the projects, and then they can point us to the right places to go in terms of getting the right forms of images, and also where to go when we need proper analysis and all those stuff, like to point us in the right direction. When it comes to the software development aspects, that's what we are. So we can put things together and come up with a very solid platform, but we need that expertise from the satellite imagery point of view.
Okay. I hope some of my colleagues are capturing this, because this is gold dust. Thank you. Tesfaye?
One thing we may expect from GEO is really supporting and promoting partnership between technology developers, whether it's data or processing tool, then the donor agencies, and also the users, which are the government institutions. So bringing all these three together so that they can work harmoniously for societal benefits.
So would you say something like AfroGeos would cover that, like the AfroGeos Symposium, or are you talking about something more continual, ongoing? Are you talking about an online forum? What would help you most to bring those partnerships together?
At higher level, like during the ministerial conference, bringing those ideas together where there are ministers or decision makers, so that they make one society, so that they feel really part and parcel of the collaboration. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to dig just a little bit deeper. Would you have a specific call to action or a specific topic that you would want them to look at or address when they all come together? Or do you just think it's a free flow of discussion and share of ideas?
Well, I think it can be a free discussion where everybody can present his own view. and at the end someone can organize and then later or develop it toward a call or partnership.
Okay.
So
Jens?
I would say connection and network. And let me just give an example of that water product that we created. So we worked for probably about 6 months. It was actually just after or during the JLC released their long-term water data set, and it was brilliant. And we thought this would be a great, next product to sort of continue from that point. And so we spent a good amount of budget on R&D to develop this data set and operational monitoring service. And in the end, we absolutely cannot sell this service to our own government in a very water scarce country. And, it's not that we want to profit from this product necessarily, but, it's more like covering costs and having the ability to just continue this operational service for the, continuing the way forward. But it's just maybe GEO can provide that platform as to where we go now with this product, because it's there, it's working. We're supporting it ourselves, but from a commercial standpoint, we also need to make some internal decisions as to what we do with this product moving forward. So perhaps GEO can provide that network to the right people to talk to assist in actually getting this product within the South African government network and their services, so that it can be an asset to the country.
So I think there's a couple of points there. I mean, one is, Morocco has similar issues. Tesfai's talked about the issues in Ethiopia. There might be areas for collaboration there. The GEO principal for South Africa is the Department of Science and Technology. They're the lead co-chair for the GEO Executive Committee. SANSA is a big part of what we're doing. CSIR. So, maybe through AfriGeos, that could be a specific, maybe that could be something RCMRD could think about for the next AfriGeos symposium as a specific discussion topic. Okay, thank you. And then, Emmanuel?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I would say, what kind of services do you need from the private sector in order to help you to develop your research activity faster and smoother? It's exactly the topic of the OCRI project. And I think it can be a really great way in order to create links between these communities and to move again faster to maximize the impact of Earth observation worldwide.
Okay, so lots of requests about networking, collaboration, and requirements. The next question, back to you, maybe to a mix of people. Is there a similar organisation in Africa to ERSC to promote great SMEs like those we have on the panel? Does anyone know of a similar organisation?
I think there's actually two kinds of association or groupment of, but it's not really the same kind of. Has to be different.
So what about? And I never know how to say this because if I say it in Scotland, it sounds rude. But ARCE, the African Association of Remote Sensing Enterprises, is that what? Environment. I mean, don't they do something sort of similar to ERSC or not?
Research. Generally, they work with universities.
Are there any questions from the floor? Tom, say who you are, please.
Hi, I'm Tom Orrell from Data Ready. Thank you all very much for very interesting presentations. I have a couple of questions, one for Tesfai and one for Stephen. Tesfaye, so this is just more out of curiosity about some of the things that you mentioned, but you mentioned that the work that you've done, especially around Awassa and Bahir Dar as well, had impacted decision making locally, and if you could perhaps elaborate a little bit on that, I'd be grateful. And then for Stephen, so really interesting work, and you mentioned that you're using Earth observation data together with other sources of data to be able to support farmers in various ways. At one point, you mentioned as well that if in situations where farmers are at risk of straying beyond the boundaries of their land, that you can then contact them and warn them of that activity. So what other sources of data are you accessing to do that and integrating? You clearly are getting their phone numbers from somewhere, which is interesting as well. So where are they coming from? And just more broadly, what regulatory framework, if any, is there in Ghana that kind of enables you to do this work or restricts you in some way when it comes to mixing up different types of data to identify people? I'd be interested to find out. Thank you.
Maybe Stephen first, since the last question was, and then you can.
All right. So maybe I'll start from the last part. So in Ghana, I mean, obviously we have the privacy policies that are around. So we work extensively with the mobile network operators in Ghana. So we have a direct partnership with MTN, Tigo, Airtel, and Vodafone. Those are the main four network partners in Ghana, and we have direct partnership with all of them. And as to how we get the access to the farmer numbers, they give it out willingly. So as I mentioned, we have over 200,000 farmers in our network, and we have agents that are trained. We have a smartphone application that they use on the field to collect this data. And if you give, as a farmer, if you give out this information to our agents, what happens is that we give you an ID card. Because of time, I couldn't go through the entire presentation, but as part of the customer identification and registration module, if you give us those demographic data, we generate an ID card for you. It's an NFC powered and then QR code ID card that helps you to purchase directly from us. And then we are able to gather your transactions and to make a case for you when sort of building sort of a credit profile for you. Because in Ghana, most farmers are unbanked. Quite a number, like about 78% thereabout are unbanked, and about close to 12% are able to access credit facilities in Ghana because of this long KYCs that the banks require from them, and they are not able to determine their risk worthiness. So it's difficult for farmers to access credit. So as part of collecting the data, we give them all these opportunities. We give them a credit profile that they can give back to the farmer. So they have like a land title. When we map their farms, that the banks can authenticate and say, that, okay, if you have, say, X acres of farmland, that at the end of the year, you can harvest, say, X amount of cocoa, which will give you X amount of money. So then if we give you X amount of funds, you can repay us back. So those are kind of the things that we are doing when it comes to that. So we have their phone numbers, they give it out willingly, and then we are able to get back to them with this information. So it's not only information about encouragement, we give them weather information, we give them agronomy tips, we give them market prices so that they're able to well bargain when people come to purchase from them at the farm gates. And the first part of the question was? Oh, have I answered both? All right.
Okay. In fact, the work we did helped the government to revise its policy on land allocation. Especially in Bahir Dar, people used to build on the river bank of Blue Nile, and also drying the wetlands, and building also in open playground and so on. Now, after we presented this, so they have agreed to increase the greeneries, where there are green areas, also create a buffer zone around the wetlands and the river corridor. The same is true in Awassa. In particular in Awassa, it's in the Rift Valley. So they are starting to work on the volcanoes. There are small volcanoes, cinder cones, which naturally emit certain radiation. So people are evicted from those areas. Now they have planting trees on this. And also building density code has been introduced. So every time they do their urban plan review, they now consult both the environment and the land surface temperature information. That's what has been done. It's policy improvement. Thank you.
So I think that's really helpful because we talk a lot about evidence-based policy, and that's what you've just described. Are there other questions from the floor? There you go.
It's just a random query. So, ma'am, your name is like, ma'am, Betty. So, I didn't see your presentation in completely, but I am able to understand that you are trying to build like something regarding like building information management system.
Correct, but by using existing data and fusing the information in order to get extra information which can be acquired via terrestrial photogrammetry with not expensive devices, and also fuse data from governmental and cadastral information for land use and in order to renovate areas and in order to give possibilities to renovate existing buildings and build new buildings in the same neighborhoods.
Okay, ma'am. I have the same concept, something really similar to it, and it's displayed in the poster outside the conference room. So the other query is like, I saw in your presentation that you will be using 5G technology to acquire data.
No, it was just to mention that crowdsourced data could be delivered and other big data could be delivered in the close future much quicker and more efficient by using the 5G technology which will be available very soon.
Okay, ma'am. The thing that I wanted to ask with regard to 5G technology is like, will you be using the devices in your site, like you mentioned of a property in Athens, I believe? Will you be using it on site?
Usually, yes.
Then it will be really bad to the property market business because 5G comes with a health hazard. And if you're doing something that like a 5G in the property side that you're willing to supply.
Usually we get the order from an end user, a customer. Means that we don't monitor the area without having a contract. And if the area owner is accepting the methodology, we can use any kind of facilitation to get the data as soon as possible.
Okay, that's it.
So because Greece is based in Europe and we cover any kind of GDPR aspects, means personal data of the people that they stay in these buildings, because these are buildings from the 70s that are modified in order to fulfill the today initiative for green neighborhoods and so on.
I'm going to cut you short there. You can have a bilateral afterwards. I suggest you maybe go to his poster or something. Okay, but thank you for raising the point. Okay, so the next one, GEO should greatly encourage SMEs to join the commercial sector category, which is actually called the Associates. I'll just correct that. Would you, the SMEs now present, be interested in joining? Okay, yes, that was a resounding yes. We have 4 new members. Well, 4 new applications, I should say. Okay, this one is from Pekkanen. I'm guessing he's Finnish. Testify, there's a huge need for EO data applications in Ethiopian society. EO is taught at academic level, but what about EO and GIS technicians?
GNS or GIS?
Well, I don't know. What's the question? Is the question, Pekka, where are you?
Yeah, I'm here. So by technicians, I mean non-academic, like middle-level technical staff.
Yeah, I think in the past there was no short-term training, but they keep on, I mean, at degree, masters and bachelor level, there was some training. But nowadays, even government has started, sponsoring short-term training, like 3 weeks, 1 month, and 2 months training for refresher courses that enhances the skill of people. But still, there are a lot of Ethiopians that travels out of the country to have this short-term training. The demand is still very high. Thank you.
I think that's a good question, because in a lot of the discussions we've only seen one slide that actually mentions skills, and that was in Emmanuel's when he talked about EO for Geo.
Yes, I'm not involved in this project in terms of person at ERSC, but yes, that's true. That's actually a lot of discussion. How can we improve the skills or capabilities of the two different kind of students? So if you are interested to contribute to this, please, we'll be pleased to discuss together on this.
Betty, this is a specific question for you. Is GeoSAS collaborating with other international organizations? Oh, no, sorry, it's for you to testify again. Well, you can answer it too if you want. Is GeoSAS collaborating with other international organizations for projects outside Ethiopia?
Yes, in fact, GeoSAS is working a lot with European partners, especially the project is funded by EU and European Commission Research, the Horizon 2020 programs, and also with FuseNet and a number of really big industries in the area throughout the world. We are collaborating with them. Thank you.
And Betty, this one is for you. Are you ready to collaborate with African countries?
Yes, of course. Why not?
Okay.
Who is asking? It was a strange question.
It's an anonymous question.
Oh, okay.
So it might be from someone anywhere in the world. Maybe not even from an African country. Okay. We just want to know. Okay, this one's from Ian McCallum at IASA. Stephen, great presentation. Do you also work on improving land tenure for smallholder farmers?
Yes, we do. So anything regarding improvements on behalf of the farmer, we do. So as I mentioned, in Ghana, the land tenure systems is a bit complicated. And even the land titles that we generate from our systems and give out to the farmers, there's a disclaimer at the bottom. Because what we've realized from mapping like huge lands is that within one household, you speak to the household head, maybe the father. He takes you to a farmland. He maps maybe 5 acres of farmland. The next day, the field officer goes and speaks to the wife. The wife has like 2 acres within that same 5-acre land. She takes you there, and we also map that same place. There's a nephew who also owns another side of the land. So you realize that there's a bigger polygon, and within the polygon, there are smaller chunks in there. So if you are analyzing the data and we see certain things, we just advise, and then we try to clean out the data, and then we advise them that within the same household, if you are all farming on the same land, there's no need for you to map the land multiple times. So, and there are also issues about land boundary systems. So my land ends here, and then when we are doing the map, and people think that if I have maybe a larger land size, when the government is giving any sort of subsidies and stuff, I stand a better chance of getting bigger ones. So when they take you to the forest, they tend to go into another person's land, and another person comes into their land, so you see the overlaps on the screen. But we have systems to detect all these things in the platform and to correct them. Sometimes it's just a phone call. You need to call, and then they tell you what the issue is, and then you can just quickly correct it. So these are things that we see on a daily basis, and we help them fix these issues.
Thank you. So I'm going to merge
3 questions kind of into 1/2. One of them is, are any of the companies currently involved in GEO activities, and which ones? And there's another question about, are the African SMEs part of AfriGeos or any other GEO activities? So I think the question is broadly, how are any of you involved in GEO at the moment? I'd say either through the regional GEO activities like AfriGeos or EuroGeos or GeoCradle or any of those kind of things, as well as the GEO work programme as a whole. So that's one question. And then there was another question about, would a GEO Data Technology Workshop be held in Africa to enhance coordination, partnership and visibility? And I think I'll answer that one. I would say that's the AfriGeos Symposium, because that's where these same discussions are held, with a lot of these same organisations already at the AfriGeos Symposium. Maybe that could be a specific track there, but I don't think we need a separate event, because the AfriGeos Symposium brings together a mix of the private and the public sector and has a lot of these discussions already from my experience. If you feel differently, say so, if you think we should have a separate event. So it's kind of 2 questions there. One about having something specifically in Africa around the Data Technology Workshop, and secondly about what's the contribution from all of you to GEO. Maybe I'll start with you, Jens.
So I don't think we as involved as we should be. I think, you almost sit here feeling a little guilty for being a small commercial entity, and the whole GEO is around sharing data and being open and giving back to the community. So it's definitely something I would like to explore further with the colleagues and see how we can get more involved.
Thank you. Stephen?
Sure. I mean, one of my main reasons for coming here was to build partnerships moving forward. So any way that we can explore further, just to help us build this tool and to impact on the lives of the farmers, I'm open to it. So yeah, I think we need to collaborate more on that.
Okay, thank you. President?
I think it's the same as the 2 speakers. So we are here to explore opportunities and the possibilities. We have never been involved as GEOs in any GEO activities in the past.
Okay. So it's interesting because the 3 of you were actually recommended by a GEO member. So you must be working with some of the GEO members already in like South Africa or Ghana or Ethiopia, because there is a reason you're here. You were recommended. So maybe we need to kind of clarify the nuance of contributions to GEO, because you can contribute in many different ways.
So even with SANZA at the moment, we're looking quite closely towards a private-public partnership, but that's, it's more complicated and has a lot of work behind it to actually get it active. And yes, we do work with them, but sometimes it's rather challenging as a commercial entity.
Okay, thank you. Betty?
To be honest, as a company, we have followed some GEO, let's say, meetings in the past, starting from 2014. There was a gap in between. We are not deeply involved. So it's true that a lot of Greek SMEs could be involved in GEO, but as far as I know, there is no such, let's say, concept around at the moment. Surely, there are academic partners from Greece to GEO, but it's in the broader community, it's not very well known. The possibility of SMEs to be involved.
Okay, thank you. And then, Emmanuel, if you want.
So, as an association, we are a member of GEO for 3 years. and we are really happy about that. We already contributed into different projects, such as Connecting Geo, GeoCradle, and we are actually involved in Next Geos, for example. So yes, and we want to, and what we do actually is to be the voice of Geo in order to share it with other members, and we will continue to do this in order to improve the efficiency of the relations, obviously.
Maybe to clarify also the role of RCM. I mean, when I was at RCMRD, we used to play really a key role in fact, establishment of Afrique Geos, and also directly involved in a number of geo events. So that gave me an opportunity to learn and know what Geo has been doing. So recently when I joined GeoSAS, so I decided just to partner because I know Geos from long time, even the members, I know them very well. That was the motivation. Thank you.
Okay. Is everyone still awake? You all still with us? Yeah. What about that side of the room? You don't have to put up your hand to tell me you're awake. I can. You have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Very important applications, especially for food security in Africa. But historically, a lot of agriculture, not just in Africa, but the rest of the world, is dependent on weather, rainfall, precipitation. As you know, there are hurricanes that periodically come and cause devastation, as much devastation as severe weather. So has your governments and populations looking for weather data, just like you have land use, land cover, agriculture data through GEO to help them mitigate risk, better prepare for food security situations and things like that? Because weather is big business. It's $1 billion applications in developed countries. And there were applications in the past through famine and early warning systems and things like that. So are your companies or countries and agencies trying to promote weather awareness and predictions through the same platforms and forums and technologies that you have now?
Okay, so that's a broad question, but open to everyone. So does anyone want to go first?
Yeah, maybe I'll just go first. So in Ghana, and particularly with Farmerline, I think we actually started on the premises of weather, because in Ghana, the farming there is mostly rain-fed. So farmers depend heavily on whether it's going to rain or not to decide whether to either plant or spray their crops or apply fertilizer and all those things. So the farmers heavily depend on the weather data. So that is where we actually started. And in the past years, we partnered with TAMO. The TAMO is in the Netherlands. I think it was a university or so, I quite remember. And we've installed over 50 weather stations across the country. We also use third-party APIs, have direct partnerships with external providers with APIs. And how we do that is we have an infrastructure, as I mentioned, a voice platform, because most of our farmers are uneducated, and most of the time they are not technology savvy. So if anything about smartphones and stuff, like, they don't care about that. They have their feature phones. So we have a system that converts this weather information into their local languages. So they just subscribe. We have a USSD application. They just dial a short code, and then they tell us, maybe when we ask them, when do you want to receive this weather information? They say, okay, I leave the house around 6 a.m. So maybe before 6 a.m., between 5 and 6 a.m., if I receive this information, it will help me plan whether to go or not. So the system captures that information and it automatically schedules the call. And we ask them, how often do you want to receive this information? They say maybe 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the system captures that information and automatically schedules it. So it has your phone number, it has the location of your farm. So it gives you specific weather information at that exact time that you requested for before you even do anything else. And it comes in their local languages. So yeah, I mean, I think weather, it's huge, particularly for our farmers. So I think we are doing a lot on that front.
Jens, you wanted to add something?
So in South Africa, we have this new initiative called Rain for Africa, and they make use of the HydroNet platform developed through DHI. And they've integrated a whole lot of weather data across South Africa and Southern Africa, and it's expanding further into Africa. But together with the South African Weather Service, together with existing global data sets, they've integrated weather and climate into this HydroNet platform quite well. And again, it's these commercial and these other organizations are leveraging off these organizations and use that data and bring it into the existing products.
In the case of Ethiopia, most of the weather data is handled by government institution, the MAID service. And the early warning is done by another multi-sectoral institution called DRRM, Disaster Risk Management Department, which is under Ministry of Agriculture. So the private companies can only contribute to the development of algorithms and computational techniques. So we are not mandated or authorized to really work on the MAID data or put out early warning as a private company.
Okay, so I have the power to let you all go free, unless someone has a burning question and not some technical detailed discussion between two people. Then I would suggest we break for coffee. And no objection to consensus. So movement of the people will happen. So please, a round of applause for our fantastic panelists. So you are now invited to go and visit the sponsors, chat with our sponsors, and also go and visit the posters and go and get yourself some more caffeine. And we'll see you back here at 5 minutes to 4. Paula's telling me 4 o'clock, but no one's ever back on time when you say 4 o'clock. So 5 minutes to 4. Thank you.